Samson Stevens, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office in which I serve. So help me God. There is nothing apathetic about the oath of office, which is exactly why I'm leading off here. The oath of office is taken by all military servants and armed service professionals. One of the best parts of my job is administering the oath of office to newly appointed or promoted service members, not only because I recite and renew the oath myself, but because of the reminder to all those in attendance that the oath is not sworn to a person, the president, but it's sworn to the United States Constitution, and it signifies the duty to uphold the framework of democracy. So why open with the oath of office? Well, it's because I see the goodness and the call to service embedded in this oath extended to so many more beyond the U.S. military. And in fact, during the past 6 years in particular, I've come to see Homeland Security professionals, firefighters, emergency managers, law enforcement, special operations teams, healthcare, educators, state, local, and federal governments, and so many more. I see all of you as the essential fabric of service, both a bond of shared experience as well as a burden that we carry together during difficult and challenging times. This element of service, in my opinion, it's a bit of a low of appreciation by our fellow citizens. I don't think it's gone, but I think us, have work to do in revitalizing the spirit of service and fortifying the very fabric, the cloth of our nation that all of us and all of our families wear. Note my special emphasis on our families, for it's they too who enable us to do what we do. Our children, our spouses, our loved ones, they too wear the cloth of our nation. Reflecting on our country's gratitude for service as a uniformed service member, I'm frequently thanked for my service. And as I boarded the planes coming here, my military ID elicited a "thank you for your service" from the gate attendant. And each time I'm thanked, I try to make a point of telling that individual, "Thank you so much. I am going to pass those thanks on to my crew and my unit and my division." And if I have just a moment more with that person, I try to highlight the many other professions that should also be thanked for their service as a reminder. So this morning, representing all the thank yous I've received in the past year, I want to relay the very same to you. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for your service. Are these words hollow, empty, insincere, sugar-coated? Well, I think they can be, and I think that it's all in how we express them and how we use the experiences we've had to relay our appreciation to others. Yeah, I've been 20 years old, 25, 30, and I looked at my job very differently than I do today. I don't know if I would have been moved to serve for 30 years way back then, but I'll get to that shortly. But I think the apathy or the disconnectedness we might perceive for "thank you for your service" is more than just an unappreciation for the sacrifice, duty, service, and our goodness that our Homeland Security professionals provide throughout our country. It represents and presents a fraying and unraveling of our fabric and the very democracy to our national security and to our way of life. In other words, I believe it represents a fraying of our value system. So how do you thank your colleagues for their service? How about medical professionals in healthcare? How about your firefighters in your local community? How about civil servants, local, federal, state, and government? The people who are genuinely serving for countless years and working to listen to the opposite side, not to identify the faults with the opposing view, but rather to work hard at finding the common ground, the shared space where joint efforts will lead to renewed appreciation and a gratitude for service. You see, I recognize that of all the many professions that one could pursue, a life of service in Homeland Security, it's not easy. And the issues we face are complicated, they're polarizing, and can put even our very own cohorts, you, me, us, it can put us on opposite sides of the table. And as we look forward to solving the most difficult problems, we really must internally reinforce the gratitude we have for one another, the respect that we have for each other's work in Homeland Security, and model the governance and frameworks that enable the success and unity of effort as a way to illuminate that public service, national service, and service to others. This is the exemplar for our society and our youth, our values, and our national security. By our actions, by your actions, starting within our organizations, at the smallest unit level, branch level, department level, the smallest organizational level, I believe firmly that our country can experience a second renaissance in leadership, service, and enduring national values. Why, it's exactly what happened to me in a way that never was planned for in my 30-year career. How is it that a kid from Montana who simply wanted to go to school because he had a modest means family that wanted better for their sons than themselves, came to be sharing experiences and hoping to inspire this esteemed group of professionals to inspire their own service, leadership, and humility among their crews, to rebuild and strengthen the fabric of our nation? Well, it's pretty simple. I entered the Coast Guard as a way to obtain an education and then secure work for a short period afterwards. In my 20s and 30s, I chose professions and assignments based on personal motivations, as well as the general undecidedness of what I wanted to do when I grew up. And then in my 40s, I started to pay a little bit more attention to the public servants who spent a lifetime of work working on the hard things, really endeavoring to be a beacon for others to follow and rally about, as others had done for me. And I realized that among disaster response and emergency management, COVID response, there were just a whole lot of people who buckled down in their spirit of service to keep serving. I realized that the whole was so much bigger than the sum of the parts, and that joint responses to some of the most difficult scenarios, major oil spills or ship groundings, port closures for oncoming hurricanes, cruise ship fires, airplane crashes, these were the most inspiring of all because they brought people all together for a shared purpose by public servants who were ready to answer the call. I realized that the fabric of coalitions, the unity of effort, the whole of government was existential to an entire region's maritime supply chain. Because if we couldn't listen to one another, respect one another, how are we going to operate together? So how do we foster that sense of calling, duty, and service when the work is so hard? And members of our teams have become so jaded, and people don't believe in government or the jobs we do. I believe it has to start with me, with you, and with us. Within each of our agencies, in the manners of our profession, in how we go about our jobs. In other words, it's not just what we do, it's how we do it. So, yeah, we have an apathy in our country, and the spirit of service is on decline. We heard Mr. Dan O'Connor discuss our nation's replacement rate yesterday at 1.1, far below the level needed to grow our nation. And my commander, Vice Admiral Lunde, briefed his senior leadership team that for every 100 jobs in the country, there are only 70 people to fill them. And that those eligible to serve in the military, only 9% have the propensity to serve. Yikes. So I offer that it's up to us, you, me, us, to create the conditions within our organizations that provide the environments where our people can work hard at jobs worth working hard at. People quit people. I don't believe they quit jobs. And while I can't relate to all the challenges that you work in your professions, and I certainly know from my own ELP cohort, 2201, you got it, guys and gals, And just listening to our colleagues here last week, that it's tough. Migration and removal operations, law enforcement, counterterrorism, public safety, emergency management, public health, homelessness, displaced persons, global warming, disrespect and crime, budget shortfalls, personnel shortages, mental health, attrition, telework versus in-person. It's challenging. It's nothing that you haven't discussed here. But here's what I know, is that if the smallest organizational element or unit is dysfunctional, toxic, or disrespectful, there is no amount of mission success that's going to keep people in the game. And if we can't convince our own public servants to stay in the game and work hard, how in the world are we going to convince others to join our ranks as a career option? So I have two answers. If these were the answers, maybe they'd be written about more and I might be invited here more often to ask to speak. No, that's not a dig, Heather. Thank you this is the first time. Maybe there'd be more, but I'm going to let you think about them, discuss them, debate them, or find value as we look at ways to regain public trust, generate interest in and an affinity to serve, and as we work to marshal ourselves as shared governmental and service organizations dedicated to working hard at jobs worth doing. Serve first, lead second, stay humble. A wise mentor of mine once told me that there's nothing new under the sun, especially when it comes to leadership. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, my plan was not necessarily to serve for this long in the organization. And the very mentor I refer to is an inflection point that set me on a different path, and one that caused me to reflect on the importance of what we all do each day. So I was at my 18th year in my career in Portsmouth, Virginia. It's about 11 years ago. Don't do the math. And I was sitting with Admiral Dean Lee for a bit of career counseling and discussion in Portsmouth, Virginia. And after a bit of discussion and to conclude the counseling, he said, "Sam, the last thing I want to leave you with is this. Take a look at my name tag on my desk." And I looked down at the under end of the office, and there was a block of wood, and my memory has made it much bigger than it was. It was like this big. And I said, "Sir, it says William Dean Lee." Admiral Lee said, "Sam, I keep that there as my name with no titles, no admiral, no commander, none of that. Just my name. That's what I want people to see. Now go ahead and walk around the back of my desk and tell me what's written on the back of it." So you have to imagine this is kind of awkward because I'm in his personal space. I'm an 05, he's a 2-star, and it's just awkward. But I do. And on the back of it, I said, "Sir, it says serve first, lead second, stay humble." And Admiral Lee tells me, "Sam, that's the real reason I keep that on the back of my desk. It's my North Star and has been for as long as I can remember." And that was the end of the discussion. Just like that. No explanation of what the words meant, how we meant them to read, or anything else. Just for me to consider. So I shipped off about a year later. And over the course of the next 7-8 years, I can't tell you the number of times that I recalled those 6 very simple words as a guidepost, as a spiritual mantra, and as a way to settle frustration and a way to buckle down and do the work, as a way to do just what they said. One conversation, one leader, taking the time to talk to me, to guide me. Never underestimate your impact on those that you lead. So in 2020, I took command, my very first command. I was like 46, 7 years old, huge apprehension and anxiety, as the captain of the port and sector commander, and these words became our command philosophy, including the deputy commander, the command master chief, the senior reserve officer, and the reserve command master chief, to not only guide the actions of the 550 active duty and reserves and 500 auxiliarists under Sector Virginia, but most importantly, to document the expectations that the crew should have for us. To document the expectations the crew should have of us. And we said, if you ever see us not acting in accordance with those, call us out. I've continued to use these as a leadership philosophy personally over the years, shaping my actions in service to others, shaping my gratitude for others that work under a similar model, and confirming that something as simple as a personal mantra, you know what it can be, is both an internal fortification to the challenge, the difficult, the scary, and the apprehensive. Sam, serve first, lead second, be humble. You got this. Man, I'm frustrated. Sam, serve first, lead second, be humble. That's what you're supposed to do. But it also can be an external commitment to a shared purpose, vision, and a commitment to a collaborative journey based on coalition building and coordination to our partners. I know that just as Admiral Lee had done for me, these words have spread to others, creating the energy to fortify organizations with purpose, vision, and mission. Service, leadership, and humility. What do these mean? Oh, wow. I mean, you could Google that, and there's thousands of books and articles and Harvard Business Reviews and LinkedIn posts, thousands. So I'll simply leave them with you, just as Admiral Dean Lee did for me, for you to consider on your own. Debate them, disagree, maybe even employ, use them as a North Star. Share with others, and in so doing, maybe help to create a little piece of that culture both within and externally for that shared purpose and gratitude for others and what they do. But I want to just dwell a little bit more on be humble. There's a reason it's at the bottom. There's a reason it is the anchor. At the foundation of everything that we do is how we do it. But there's this weird paradox, right? Because in order to be successful in our careers, that's confidence, assertiveness, boldness, proficiency, competence. Those are all things that feed our ego. We have to have an ego to do those things. But taken too far, what happens? An ego run amok, if you will. The traits can turn into toxicity, disrespect, an unwillingness to listen, a sense of privilege, and so many of the other unhealthy traits that can turn an organization upside down. So if ego and humility are on this sliding scale continuum, kind of with a line in between them, that's not set, it kind of moves depending on rank, organizational position, situation. How do we know where that line is between ego and humility? How do we assess our abilities as a leader? And what's the pressure gauge for our ego? As a final commentary on how we go about creating public and national service organizations that model future careers that work together, not apart, on the challenges today to build up rather than tear down, I offer the very powerful tool of feedback. And when I look at the effectiveness of our organizations and our ability to tackle the hardest problems we could face, to create these environments where people want to work hard at that work that's so worth doing, to attract the best, to create a gratitude paradigm that buoys the nation in its appreciation for civil, public, and national service, we need to start locally. We all know that events and incidents start and end locally. So what's the local version of an organizational culture? You. That's local. And I offer it's learning how to seek, accept, and grow from feedback about you. To learn how to tame that ego muscle that's maybe getting a little big for its britches. And learn how to face your own personal weaknesses. To explore alternative points of view in search of the common ground. To learn how to listen to others. Not to respond, listen, formulate response, but to understand what they're saying. So that we can build up, create respect-based organizations that are able to weather these wicked problems that we have been talking about this week. Each of you has the power to be a change agent for your organizational culture. Not as a lightning bolt moment, kapow, where everything suddenly changes, but I believe in small incremental steps. Because consistency beats intensity every time. If any of you are readers, authors, or fans of Simon Sinek, you'll have heard him talk about this as he illustrates the power Brushing your teeth for 2 to 3 minutes a day for a lifetime is the secret to keeping your teeth healthy, not brushing them once a month for 8 hours at a time. Consistency beats intensity every single time. So feedback comes in so many different forms. 360, you probably heard those through like LPI, direct communication, hey boss, how am I doing? Performance appraisals, oh gosh, this doesn't look so good. Maybe it does, maybe it's inflated. We can talk about that. Professional, personal interactions, hey, don't be a jackass. How do you really push into the areas that might be leading to organizational problems, dysfunction, or just a reluctance to get the job done? And I offer a form of feedback I used, really not until later in my career, and one that I've gone through 3 times in the past 7 years as a way to sharpen my abilities and make me more effective at leading. And it's called the 360 Informal, and it works like this. 2 colleagues contract with one another. So say it's Heather and me. Heather's the coach and I'm the receiver. The receiver identifies 15 to 20 people with whom they worked, superiors, colleagues, individuals, subordinates, who they believe would provide a pretty good cross-section of feedback about the receiver's performance. And the people you identify shouldn't be your best friends. Go deliberately seek the people you disagree with and you want the feedback you need to hear, not the feedback you want to hear. Then I, the receiver, notifies everyone via a blind carbon copy, hey everyone, I'm doing this thing. It's called feedback. I'd value your participation. My coach, Heather, will be contacting you separately. If you're interested, please participate. And what I'd ask you, because I'm interested in growing, is to answer the following 4 questions, which Heather will ask you. What is Captain Stevens doing that he should keep doing? What is he doing that he should stop doing now? What is he not doing that he should kind of giddy up and start doing? And what's some other feedback would benefit his performance? Then the coach, Heather, contacts a portion of the individuals. I don't know how many. Is it 10, 12, 15? I don't know. And I never find out. And I don't know which ones she contacts. She interviews them and gets the actual verbal stories and bases of trust on this contract. And the anonymity of this process is preserved because I never know who the coach, in this case Heather, contacts. And I never try to find out, and I only know that it's about 50%. I've done this 3 times in my career, beginning the first time I learned about it in 2016, then 2020, 3 months after I assumed command, and then I just completed it about 2 months ago in December. And let me tell you, this is one of the more difficult things I've done. And stop. The feedback, the real feedback that's growth-oriented, well, let's just say that it's true. What doesn't kill you does make you stronger. But when you're in it, it is a kick to the stomach sometimes. The feedback sessions lasted an hour. In this case, Heather interviewed, talked about what the respondents said. I asked questions. I didn't probe too much about who the identities would be. And then you're able, rather than an anonymous printout from LPI 360, just to say, I don't really understand what that means, talk to the coach and say, what did that person mean? This is what I assume they meant. And then I shared a summary note back to all the respondents and said, thank you for the feedback. This is what I learned. Here's what I believe I do well, thanks to your notes, and here's where I need to work. This is a condensed version of the 3 different sessions I conducted over the 3 different jobs and intervals. And obviously, it's always affirming, man, yeah, you're a rock star, to receive the positive feedback. And hopefully these kind of mirror the approaches and things that you're invested in. For instance, I do like to prioritize relationships with people and understand their lives. I'm a nerd. My wife tells me that every day, and I love to learn. I like to ask questions. I love school. I'm an engineer, so I like organization. I pay attention to detail. I like block and wire diagrams. I do. They help me. And I love my job. I'm excited to do it every day. But the constructive improvement areas, they can really create a disturbance in one's force. Or as Kristen Ziman said yesterday, they rearranged my molecules. As you read through some of these, I spelled them out exactly as I did in my closeout emails, and I did not attempt to soften the feedback because people gave it out of trust that Heather was interviewing, that I wouldn't know who said it, and out of trust that I wanted to improve. Yep, micromanagement, overly detailed, trust issues, paralysis analysis, lack of confidence, lack of strategic thinking. Just let the staff get the work done. These are some of the summary items that were delivered to me over 3 different sessions. Were accompanied by details and amplifying information. And this isn't an exhaustive list. There were some blind spots that I took immediate action on. There are others that I knew I struggled with and I needed to take more actions on. But in all cases, feedback informed an approach of getting better each and every day. It's been said that there is no growth in your comfort zone and no comfort in your growth zone. You say that again, so you can write it down. There's no growth in your comfort zone, and there's no comfort in your growth zone. It's an easy little literary trick that I learned from someone. Absolutely true. So how did I grow? What did I do with it? In execution phase, I found that by opening myself up to feedback, it let my team know that, yeah, that guy, he doesn't have all the answers, and he's willing to admit it. And he's willing to, kind of like the emperor has no clothes, let's tell him the straight truth. I let them know that I wanted to improve and become the leader that they needed me to be. And I found I could be more transparent about my flaws, my struggles, challenges, and in turn I found that others were more willing and trusting to let me know about their life and career and struggles and flaws and challenges. I became a better listener, I think. I learned how to simply listen to understand rather than try to solve the problem or respond immediately. I promoted monthly brown bag difficult conversations venues where we learn how to hold two opposing thoughts in our head at the same time without ghosting people, canceling one another, or getting into an argument. Imagine that. And even if we didn't agree with one another, we could have civil discourse. During checkouts, I sat with underrepresented minorities during exit interviews and asked them if there was anything that I needed to know about their experiences that would make me, a straight, white, male officer, a better leader, a better human, a better commanding officer. And I always had people respond. No one ever said, no, that's all right, sir, I don't really need to talk about it. Fascinating perspectives on the experiences of others that I never had, that I needed to hear. I learned to engage with the chief's mess, to listen to the deck plate issues at hand, and to commit to working together to solve them. And one of the most important, the most important recognition in my career to date was becoming an honorary member of the Sector Virginia Chiefs Mess. Yep, right there. I wear it proudly. It's a little anchor. That's an honorary appointment to people who the Chiefs Mess vote to say, you can be one of us. Because I asked for the feedback, and because it was right there. Be more involved with the Chiefs Mess. 8th bullet down. I learned how to reduce my questions, be more trusting of the crews during the work, and at each and every juncture, feedback provided me the tools to focus on creating a respect-based culture where people felt valued for the work they do and fulfilled in the jobs they performed. So these two elements, a vision and the ability to listen. That's it, the two, a vision and the ability to listen, I believe can be a major start to strengthening our fabric, rebuilding it, sewing it together, attracting and keeping the best people in the world. Because for all the problems we have out there, I still think that we, in our country, have some of the best people in the world. So let's attract them and keep them and show them how to grow. I recognize there's so many things in the Coast Guard I can't change, but what I believe I can do is to provide an environment in my immediate circle where I can set the conditions to feel respected, valued, and appreciated in the work they do. And I recognize that if I set these conditions for a climate of respect by establishing an unwavering commitment to vision and principles, we're good. I see feedback as an opportunity to connect with my crew and to embrace the growth pains that comes with realizing that I may not be effective as I thought I was. Wow. There's things that I don't know. Every day, I'm kicked in the shins by how much I don't know. But I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to show my teams what it means to grow, make mistakes, and strive to be better every day. In this way, remember, consistency beats intensity every time, and it's the little things that are the big things. In this way, small incremental steps can lead to massive organizational change. And there's this really neat physics phenomenon that models the power of this small incremental energy that can have massive effects. I love it for its simplicity.
Everybody knows about playing with dominoes, but what you may not know is that a domino can knock over another domino, which is about 1.5 times larger. So what I have here is a chain of dominoes. Each one is 1.5 times larger than the previous one. And the smallest domino is about 5 millimeters high and 1 millimeter thick. And I will carefully place it. And there are 13 dominoes. The largest domino weighs about 100 pounds and is more than a meter tall. Ready? Again. Boom. That was 13 dominoes. If I had 29 dominoes, the last domino would be as tall as the Empire State Building.
So just imagine the power that each of you can have as a domino in your organization. And another really important mentor once told me, take time when you don't have time. Take time when you don't have time. Stop on your way to that meeting and ask the junior member about their weekend and really mean it. It's not a pro forma like I was told to ask the member about their weekend, how's your weekend, and then keep moving. Really mean it and invest. Learn the names of your direct reports, their families, their interests. I'm not great with names. My hack as I went around is I had my people in my phone, and as I knew I was going to a field unit, I would prepare and learn the name of their spouse, their children, and try to remember that. And it was as good as I do, but it eventually implanted. Ask the field operator when you're on those field unit visits, hey, when's your next promotion? What do you want to do next? Do you want to stay in? Do you want to go out? How can we support you? What's your next educational goal? Because when you ask, imagine when they go home and talk to their family, their mom or their dad, their cousin, their family, again, that family that supports, and they said, Mom, Dad, my spouse, the boss talked to me today and asked me, and they actually remembered my name. Be the domino and have the impact. Never underestimate your impact. I love this lady and what she says and how she says it, because I think as we get maxed out in our workloads, it's easy for us to forget our people, their families, their careers, their interests. And when all we do is transact with one another, there's so little to hold us together. Special Agent in Charge, FBI Norfolk Region, was the kind of person who taught me how important it was to invite one another to lunch so that we knew more about each other when it was time to do the hard work. It also made it so much easier to find the common ground in differing viewpoints and to identify where we could build up rather than tear down, point fingers, and argue. We want to feel respected and heard, and so do our people. But the issues we're dealing with don't present binary solutions. We talked about that this week. So we must learn to listen better, to respect one another, and to till that common ground to bolster our organizations to face the host of challenges facing us today. As a graduate of 2201, let's hear it, 2201. Okay. Zip, rewind. Graduate of 2201, let's hear it. Golly. We didn't practice that part. So I vividly remember talks with our cohort leaders and fireside chats like former Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, Chief of Metropolitan Police Charles Ramsey, TSA Administrator Peter Neffinger, not Admiral Pekoski, as well as those this week. And I remember the talks that demonstrated this commitment and resolve and a vision, that fire in the belly, right? Fire in the belly, I'm doing this and I got it and I'm going to keep working hard at a job worth working hard at, to make a difference and to lead through the toughest homeland security threats and challenges. That's what ELP did for me. But it wasn't just them. I reflected on my classmates from across the country here, representing this diverse cross-section. And after a year of reflection, I've come to believe that something as simple as the 6 words, serve first, lead second, be humble, a little bit of feedback, can provide a North Star for public servants across all domains. And when operationalized into deliberate, intentional actions and purposeful approaches, they can serve as a foundation to national service and our country's security. Thanks so much for the opportunity to talk with you, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you and your families for your service.